Listen, I mean, Nigel Farage made great play of having people who've been in government in reform when Robert Jenrick defected. Well, now he's got two.
He certainly does. Henry said there that it was an unexpected defection, and I'm sure in terms of the news cycle that's right. But I think it was also perhaps the least surprising piece of political news so far this year in terms of where Suella Braverman has been in the Conservative Party. We shouldn't underestimate her. She not only had all those offices that Henry was reading out just now, she was also, of course, a contender to replace Boris Johnson, and taken quite seriously at that time, less than 4 years ago. So a big, big figure on the right of the Conservative Party. And I think one of the interesting things here is that, first of all, she followed, as it were, the Robert Jenrick playbook, which is you come on, you absolutely slag off your old party. They're liars, they've got no spine, they've got no soul, they've got no spirit, they can't be trusted. And you think, yeah, but you were with them for 30 years. It's taken you a while until the lifeboat is right beside you before you jump. And secondly, I have to say, like Andrew Rossendale, like Robert Jenrick, she is not offering the voters of her own constituency a by-election. Now, Reform have made quite a lot, and I think rightly, of Labour delaying all those local council elections as being an affront to democracy. And I have a certain amount of sympathy with them on that. But by the same token, we've now got 3 seats recently where the voters voted one way, Conservative, and find their MP is now something slightly different. Do they not deserve a say at this point? So I think that's very interesting. I think inside the Conservative Party, there is going to be a big argument about how broad the coalition is, because the right of the party, the old Boris Johnson right of the party, is hollowing out and fragmenting and falling away to Reform almost week by week, day by day. But at the same time, we see, as it were, old centrist Conservatives like Andy Street, the former mayor, and Baroness Ruth Davidson, a very, very prominent Conservative, trying to form, as it were, a centrist group to win the argument back inside the Conservative Party. So one of the things I think we should all be looking at is what's going to happen to the Tories now.
Yeah, it's the battle for the right.
It is a battle for the right. And what the right means, you know?
Yeah, and Keir Starmer, speaking of battles, he talked about the battle of our lives coming up. I guess he partly means in May, but he certainly will be looking to the next general election for this. As things stand, Reform clearly have a great deal more to do before they are, inevitably electable to number 10. But he's hardly having a good time there, is he?
He's having an absolutely miserable time. And sticking with the Reform side of the argument, I think, he did have a point in that a mayoral election covering Greater Manchester, as well as the by-election, would have given Nigel Farage absolute rocket boosters in the first part of this year. And I can exactly see why he wouldn't want that to happen. But we all know that he didn't want Andy Burnham inside the House of Commons because it's inviting the fox into the hen house. And I think Andy Burnham's made it very, very clear that he doesn't believe deep down that Keir Starmer is doing a good job, and he's got a lot of support in the country for that view, and that he would like to replace him. I think the real question now is what happens to somebody like Wes Streeting, who probably also is unimpressed by the Prime Minister privately. Do we see somebody like that coming out and making a break for the leadership? My view on this is that Keir Starmer has bought himself time by pretty brutally shoving Andy Burnham out of any contention in the short term, infuriating a lot of colleagues on the left of the party in particular, and irritating a lot of journalists. But he's only bought himself time. This is not going to go away, and I think the likelihood of him having to fight for his own leadership before the summer is pretty high.
Let's play with 2 scenarios with that Reform pressure in mind as well. Let's say in May it isn't as bad as people are predicting. Would that give him more time?
It would. I was talking to a member of the Cabinet who's not a sort of natural, huge enthusiast for Keir Starmer, but said to me, do you know what? The likelihood of Keir Starmer surviving, because he has the levers of power, he has a very, very tough fighter in Morgan McSweeney to one side of him, and then going on to actually win an election is very badly underpriced by the media in this country at the moment. And I think there's an interesting argument there. I think he can survive. He has to go through this. He's a very, very stubborn man. He's proud and he's stubborn and he doesn't give way easily. So it's not going to be easy to persuade him to leave number 10.
You probably need to be those things to get through to the job that he's got through to.
You need to have the hide of a very, very elderly rhinoceros. at least, to survive in politics at the moment, particularly if you're Prime Minister.
And I said at the top that it feels to me, I can almost feel the tectonic plates of our politics shifting. They were already, but today was a big moment, wasn't it?
It's a big moment. I think it's really hard now to guess what's going to happen next. If you look at the electoral arithmetic and you talk to pollsters, if the right, the political right in this country wants to come back to power, pretty certainly within a few years' time, then at some point they have not to merge or do a deal, but they have to do an electoral pact of some kind so that Tories are not facing reform candidates in every seat up and down the country. But the events of today, the vicious language that Suella Braverman was using about people serving in the shadow cabinet at the moment, that makes it much, much harder. Kemi Badenoch now can't stand reform, can't stand Nigel Farage, he can't stand her. So seeing the right coming together as it needs to do is harder, and similarly on the left. Can Keir Starmer reach out, can Wes Streeting or somebody else reach out to the Liberal Democrats and perhaps to some voters who've gone to the Greens and bring them back so that we have two big blocks at the next election, a sort of right of centre block and a left of centre block.
And if by some political miracle Andy Burnham had been able to become an MP, a Labour MP, and be in the cabinet for Keir Starmer, unlikely given what you've just been telling us, he'd be a decent political beast for him to have close, wouldn't he, in the face of reform?
He's a very powerful and persuasive operator, Andy, and he's got a very strong story to tell about so-called Manchesterism. You know, this slogan that he uses, business-friendly socialism, is what an awful lot of people in the Labour Party and around the country would like to see more of. He's a great communicator.
Certainly a lot of businesses would.
A lot of businesses would. And you can tell from that he's not a great fan, from that phrase, of some of the things that were in the budget. But I think the idea of him coming back into the House of Commons and then accepting a seat in Keir Starmer's cabinet is quite low. I think he'd have come into the House of Commons and rallied MPs against Keir Starmer.